So we're an e-commerce store, so we do have a studio in Coburg in the northern suburbs of Melbourne where we by appointment, people can come and try out a pillow, but the main way people access us is through our e-commerce store at gokindly.com.au. Obviously we have social media, all the normal social media things. We even have TikTok, even though I'm not very good at it. So you can find us on Instagram and Facebook and Snapchat, all of those places, and you can get new home bundles. You can get, so if you know somebody who for a housewarming present, you can send them a 4-pack of pillows or a 2-pack of pillows or a duvet and some pillows. If you know someone who's having a baby, we've got a pregnancy pillow, or someone who's had surgery, we have a U-shaped pillow which people like for when they have surgery. Yeah, that we looked around and realised that actually to grow and for us to learn, something needs to change. Otherwise, we're just going to keep doing the same thing for the rest of our careers, and that's not challenging. And then also, we had a baby. So we had a newborn baby. I was fairly new into a job and I didn't have any access to maternity leave. So I had to go back to work quite quickly. And my husband took paternity leave, and then he was made redundant while he was on paternity leave. So there was this kind of change in the way our life was structured, and it wasn't quite as simple and as easy as it had been. And so that really pushed us towards realising, one, we're not learning and we're not growing, and two, you know, my husband was made redundant, we've got a newborn baby. I wasn't really enjoying my job, and we just felt like we could use profit to do better. We felt like there was an opportunity not to just be another run-of-the-mill brand, but actually use the proceeds to do good in the world. When you get fairly senior inside an organisation and you realise where money goes, so you get involved in decision making and you realise what those proceeds are used for. So when you make a profit and when you understand where the margin is, you start questioning, if that was my business, would I be making those decisions? Would I spend money in that way? Would I need a new car right now? Would I need a better office? Would I, you know, is that the handbag I'd buy? Is that, I guess, the more senior you are, the more your eyes are open to where that money goes. So yeah, that the shareholders get paid a certain amount and the CEO gets paid a certain amount. And we just started questioning, like, if that was our brand, is that the way we would want to use the proceeds from building that brand? And that was an awakening for us, that we just felt that often leaders were not kind to their people, were not good to their people, that they cared more about status and they cared more about having the next new shiny thing than they did about making the world better. And so there was this very gradual kind of process of going, I don't want to work like that anymore. I want to lead and build something that's got a bigger legacy than that. To be honest, our brand was built around wanting to do good and believing that there was a place for doing good. And we built our values and we built our business model and we built our brand before we really even had a product. So our goods really are, they're built, and the idea behind it was that they would be everyday, ordinary items that everybody is always going to need. They're things that are going to be in your home, you're always going to need them, and that you'll always come back to us because you've had a good experience with us and we have good quality for our price point. So really our products are guided by that kind of, that we call it like a circle of kindness, that actually our brand is bigger than just the product. The product is kind of neither here nor there. Whatever it is, we're always going to have it, and you're always going to need it. So yeah, I mean, I guess we shopped around the house, right? We went around the house and went, toilet paper, somebody's already done it. Hand wash, somebody's already done it. Socks, somebody's already, like many people have done socks in the social enterprise model. And we really just went around the house and then settled on the bedroom and the bathroom. We're like, well, there's not a lot of people in a social enterprise model in that space. So yeah, it was really about finding a product that was everyday and was ordinary, but that you used all the time. Started out trying to source ethically from China. So yeah, I guess we bought a lot of samples here in Australia and started to test. We didn't know anything about pillows or anything about duvets other than that we had one that we bought somewhere. So we bought a lot of samples here in Australia and tried to narrow down the kind of product we wanted. And we still do that today, really. we borrow from what is already there and adjust it and tweak it to get what we think is a good outcome and a high quality outcome. And we tried to source from overseas, and it was just too hard with a newborn baby. We needed to be able to get there, to be able to review the QC process and to be able to make sure it was being created ethically and in line with our values, and it just became too hard. So in the end, we started looking around here in Australia for somebody to manufacture locally, and we've been lucky enough that we have some manufacturers here in Australia that are very easy to work with in terms of location. They're here in the country, so we can talk to them easily, we can visit them when we need to, and obviously they operate underneath Australian OH&S laws and Australian labour laws. So yeah, we work with third-party manufacturers and we get them made here in Australia. It's really about supporting women at times of difficulty, and while we give part of the proceeds, we also commit to not using single-use plastic, and we're not perfect either. Like we do, we're constantly striving to do better, but I guess there's a few points that we wanted our business and our brand to be to have in its values, and that is to be kind, and that is in hiring people, to hire people from backgrounds that are a bit different to other people's, people who might struggle to be finding mainstream employment, people who might be struggling to find enough hours to fit around other parts of their lives, whether that's illness or children or caring responsibilities for older relatives. So we're very, very conscious about making sure that everything that we interact with, we do so in the kindest and most respectful way that we can. And that does include with our profits. So obviously we reinvest some of the profits back into the business, and we so 50% of that is to reinvest or to pay us a modest salary, and then we use the other proceeds to give to some charities to support women who are experiencing housing stress or homelessness. So I think because of my own life experiences, so I had to leave my family quite young, and I knew that it's difficult to find housing when you're a person on your own, when you don't have a high income, when you don't have a bond, and that's made more difficult when you're leaving things like family violence or domestic violence, when you've got young children. So yeah, I was always aware that there is an issue with housing for women, and that a lot of people don't realise just how big and how deep that problem is. When you see people sleeping rough, that's like the tip of the iceberg. There's this whole lot underneath. There's almost 50,000 women a night who don't have secure housing, and that's things like couch surfing, or sleeping in caravans, in cars, camping. These are not people sleeping in doorways necessarily. There's this whole other layer underneath of people who don't have secure housing. So it was really important to me that I was able to somehow contribute towards making that problem go away, because it's not right. Every week is a different challenge, but I think when I have to caveat that with as you build your career inside any kind of business, whether it's your own or somebody else's, there are always challenges, and sometimes, as hard as some of the challenges are, actually running this is kind of it's kind of nice compared to solving other people's problems. When businesses you work for run out of money, or need investment, or go through stressful situations with fraud or with accounting issues, those things are really stressful too. So in lots of ways, having these stresses is kind of nice because they're my stresses, and I get to work them out instead of working with someone whose values are different to mine. But of course, it's also nice to go to work and be able to come home at night and not have to stress about those problems, whereas I bring these problems home every night. So there is pros and cons to these things, right? I suppose every week there are problems. I mean, during COVID, we ran out of stock because our manufacturer wasn't able to operate at full capacity, could only operate at 50% capacity, just with the space. They weren't able to have people working side by side the way they had been. Some of our raw materials come from India, so that our cotton comes from India, for instance, so that had trouble getting into the country. So it was a very stressful time. We were very lucky in that people bought more online. Obviously, there was a very big shift to online purchasing during COVID, which really drove a lot more people on to our website. And we're very blessed, especially in the older cohort, to have a lot more older and even in particular older men who spend more to buy online. But we ran out of stock. So, that was a stressful time. And for a long time, it was unclear when stock would come in. We didn't know when COVID restrictions would lift. We were running very lean on stock on hand, so we tried not to have too much value tied up in stock sitting in our studio. So we learned a valuable lesson there to try and have a little bit more stock up our sleeve. And then more recently, we've had production issues with the quality. Just something has not gone quite right with the filling, and the fibres are much thicker and much coarser than they had been. So while we had a lot more stock on hand, it means that we've got a bigger problem on our hands, because we've got upwards of somewhere between 800 and 1,500 of pillows that the quality is not great. We're not happy with the quality. The fibre is coarse, they're not comfortable, they're not spongy like they should be. So that's a really difficult conversation with our manufacturer as well. And also very difficult with our ethics, because what do you do with upwards of 1,500 pillows that don't meet your standards? We don't just want to throw them out. That doesn't meet our ethical standards. And so what are our options with them? We lose sleep over that because we don't want to waste them. We're also not happy with the process that the filling went through. So we have to have difficult conversations with our manufacturer, and that doesn't feel very nice to be having at the moment. Honestly, how much fun it is. I mean, I know I'm now 40 years old, and 20 years ago, I probably didn't have the confidence to say this, but I wish that I'd done it at least 10 years ago. I think those first 10 years of my career were great in terms of understanding how to operate, how to network, how to understand the basics of finance. But those 10 years in kind of leadership positions, I kind of regret them a little bit. I met some wonderful people, and there's lots of skills that I burnt along the way. But I think, and obviously the money is much better than it is running your own gig, especially in the early years. We're now heading to where we're paid decently, but those early 2 years were hard. Especially, you're like, you're putting a lot into it. So those first 10 years, I don't regret so much, but I wish I'd done it earlier. I wish I'd had the confidence to say to myself, no, you got this. Like, you've got the basics, you can do this. And I think I probably also would have done something small on the side myself if I'd done it 10 years ago. We weren't quite big with Go Kindly. We weren't all in, which is good. It's all turned out well. But, the opportunity is there to do little things on the side. Like I've got a friend who runs this company as a social enterprise. It's incense sticks. So she runs that on the side of her day job. There's so much opportunity to do little things on the side and gradually grow them, and then, gradually wind down your whatever career you're in. It doesn't need to be all in the way we were. Also, it's a different world in terms of support structure for startups and social enterprises. There is, I didn't realise how wonderful the support network is for social enterprises and profit for purpose. The whole B Corp world is wonderfully supportive. The social enterprise community is very supportive of each other. They share resources. They are very embracing of anybody and everybody, which is very different to the mainstream kind of corporate and large business world, where they can be quite judgmental and you need to look a certain way and sound a certain way. It's a wonderful community to be part of. And I wish that I'd known that earlier and backed myself to sort of be part of it. What other advice would I give? I guess to expand your skills outside of commerce and finance and accounting. My husband and I are both very lucky in that we came from backgrounds where we had exposure to different skills. And I'm quite an artistic person, so I was lucky that I had some of that product kind of curiosity and some flair in something. And you don't need to know everything, but it is good, I think, to have some experience outside of just one area. So, I would sort of reiterate to people to take on part-time jobs, to learn different things other than just being an accountant or just being a CFO, because that stuff's really valuable if you go out on your own. Or at least have friends in that area. That helps too. If you can build your network with marketers and copywriters and product developers, I think that stuff is kind of good to have in the long term. It's a wonderful experience, and I can't recommend it enough. And don't be afraid to reach out and ask questions if you have them. And also, I'd say that to any kind of social enterprise, right? If you see a social enterprise you like the look of, don't be afraid to reach out to them.